In a world of magic and mystery, one elf woman fights crime and the forces of evil in her own unconventional way. These are The Misadventures of Agnetha Deveaux. Episode 5, Interlude with Some Vampires, written by Royce Pentaghast. The story so far. Our hero, the black elf woman Agnetha Deveaux, had been in battle with a demon, a malignant spirit of a man once living, who sought to use his new supernatural powers to wreak havoc in the material world. The magic of this foe was not uncommon, but beyond Agnetha's knowledge, nor was it written in the pages of the many spellbooks she owned. She now ventured north to a great magic library, hoping they might have the answer to her problem. Only Agnetha would never make it there, for a different dark force stood in her way. Traveling by wagon, train, and now on foot, Agnetha came to rest in the village located on the marshy coast and blanketed in several feet of snow.
Welcome, traveler. I'm Sigrun, the landlady of this tavern. Are you by yourself or with the Elven party?
Agnetha. I'm by myself here. I'll take a lager if you got one. There are other elves here. Where are we, anyway?
Indeed. Set up camp in a northern field. This is Velbjörn. Where are you headed?
Larson University Library.
Still a way off. At least another 2 days if you're still walking.
Much going on around here?
Afraid not. Not only is winter setting in, the town is in mourning. A family was murdered here several weeks ago.
Oh, damn. I'm so sorry to hear.
Bloody vampires.
What was that?
Pay no attention to the village drunk.
If you're wanting to survive here, elf, you better be drinking something stronger. Helps thin the blood. Stops them going after you.
Alright, and what might that be?
Bloodsuckers, life drainers. The ones who killed that family.
What's he on about?
There are rumors. I try not to bother myself with them. But if you want to know, speak to the Jarl, the village leader. They should point you in the right direction.
Finishing her drink, Agnetha headed out to speak to the Jarl. On her way, curiosity of the Menarish elf encampment set up on the outskirts of town got the better of her, as she wandered by on the way to the Jarl's building to take a look. Despite being an elf, she hadn't much knowledge of the true elven customs or lifestyle, being raised in human society. A few years prior, she'd had a meeting with a Menarish elf craftswoman by the name of Merelda, forming a close bond that had in the last year come to a halt when Merelda stopped their correspondence. But who should Agnetha spot as she walked on by the camp but that very same brown-haired lady dressed in green?
Merelda?
Agnetha?
Yeah, is that you?
What are you doing out here?
I could say the same thing to you. Just passing through on the way up north to Larson Library. What about you?
Oh, we're going south. We're camping here for a few days. It's a long story. How you been?
Yeah, alright. I wanted to write you, but you never got back to me.
I'm sorry, it's been really busy this last year and just kept being put back.
Totally kept that. It happens.
Are you off somewhere now? I'm not doing anything. Maybe we could,
Well, I'm off to talk to the Jarl of the village. Apparently there was a murder here a few weeks ago.
off on one of your misadventures. I could come with you.
Sure thing. Yeah. Right this way.
The two elves headed back into the village to introduce themselves to the Jarl. Convincing the guards of their legitimacy, they were brought before Jarl Melvrig, seated by a roaring fire in his office, with a tabby cat snuggled on his lap. Agnetha explained who she was and her intentions in helping him, and he invited them to sit.
You heard of the tragedy that took place here. It's only the latest happening of such terror that has haunted this place, from desecrated cattle and crops to attacks in the night. People on the village talk of sick creatures, vampires, creatures of darkness, who drain blood from their victims and ensnare others in their will. Such foulness I would not want to believe, but all seems to say this is indeed creatures of evil at work.
I'm not familiar with such beings, but I do know things like this can be dealt with.
So far the legends are proving to be true. Vampires feed off life, but fear it. Staying away from fire, from warmth, The purity of cooking or the spices we use sickens their guts. They are strong, but they can be beaten.
Then that's all I need to know.
Where's this place where the murders happened?
Oh yeah, we do need to know that.
Turn right from here past the cathedral and the yard, and left down the lane. You will find the wreckage burnt from the fire that consumed them. Some villagers have reported seeing darkened figures appearing within the ruins at night. Maybe you can bring closure to this tragedy.
The two women bid Jarl farewell and made their way to the house.
Solving murders now, is that your thing?
One of many.
Only back when I knew you. You were fighting vermin and beating up public officials.
I still do that. Now I just diversify.
Murders, though. It's quite a step up.
Yeah, well, I was on a train with Termel when someone got killed. I had the power and the know-how and figured it out, and it all went from there.
And now you're out here, on one journey taking up more work. You're a busy woman.
Not as busy as you. I would have told you about all this, had you written back to me with your new address.
Please, don't get angry at me.
Angry? I didn't say I was angry.
You just seem pretty worked up is all.
Well, we're about to check out a site of a family murder. I don't think cheeriness is too appropriate. Why are you out here?
The clan travels. We're always on the move. It's just fate or something that has brought us out here at the same time as you.
What's this long story you mentioned? I mean, if it's something you didn't want to get into...
It's nothing. It's life. It's boring. It happens. You're going your way. I'm going mine. You want to know? The clan travels. We set up a shop outside some town, trade with men and Minera, and move on to the next place.
Oh, well, that sounds cool.
Cool? It's absolutely freezing here. What are you doing here?
Larson Library, a few days north of here. I've been dealing with some malignant spirit. I've never met one before, and I don't know the magic to deal with it. I've got access to the library of the Magic Council back in Varadun. I did him a favour a while ago, but even they didn't have anything on the matter. So here I am.
It sounds a lot more serious than what I'm going through.
I was sad that I didn't hear from you, that I couldn't reach you. I wondered what I'd said, if I'd said something. I mean, you must have been thinking about it too, if you're thinking I was angry at you.
It sounds bad, but when you weren't always in front of me, it was easy to get distracted by what was. The more time went on, it just got harder to find the words. 1 month became 6, became 12. What could I say?
Anything, any old bollocks. But doesn't matter, you're here now.
I am, and you're here.
So let's make the most of it. Here we are.
The two came to a stop outside the burnt wreckage of the house. All buildings in the village were constructed from ornately carved wood and slate in an A-frame design, and all that remained was the blackened chimney, piles of burnt wood, and the cobblestone floor. Agnetha made her way in, hands held up as the magic flowed from them, surveying the remains.
I can get a sense of death. It's faint, but present. There's something else here. Dark. Corrosive.
When you do that, how does it feel?
I don't know. How does it feel to breathe? I can trace these energies. I guess you could say they feel hot. And it's not just my hands, it's everything. I get a sense of good and bad. And there's been bad here, alright.
Darkened figures, something the Jarl mentioned. Spirits or demons, that kind of bad.
Oh no, this is something tangible I'm feeling. A real flesh and blood being. But there's something off with it. Some spiritual trace. Someone or something has been coming back to this place, probably in the nights, and that's what people are seeing.
Hey, about what you were saying a second ago, about the spirit, I can talk to the Drenissar, the clan spiritualist. They might know of some spell that could help you. It could save you trekking all the way to that library.
Well, thank you. That would be helpful. But, the sun should be down soon. How about we go get something to eat, come back here, and stake out the place until something comes along?
That sounds a plan. I know the place to go.
The pair headed to Merelda's camp for an early dinner, and returned to the burnt-out house, hiding amongst the snow-covered bushes as night sat in. They kept quiet for well over an hour. Only the wildlife and waves crashing in the distance could be heard, before something stirred within the ruins of the house. A dark, shambling figure appeared, rustling about, ducking in and out of sight. Its rat-like hands scrabbing over the surfaces, before it vanished back from where it came. A few minutes passed before Agnetha and Merelda slowly approached the ruins, noticing this being, whatever it was, left no footprints behind in the snow where it walked.
What do you think it did?
I don't think it did anything. It realised we'd been here.
She cast a lantern light over the floor, their footprints from earlier still visible in the snow.
Take a closer look over where it was. See if you can find anything.
There's a trapdoor here. Looks like it might lead to a cellar or basement.
Maybe even a coal shed. Looks like it's been opened up recently and covered back over in rubble. Is it unlocked?
It is.
Merelda heaved open the door. As Agnetha poked her head down, lantern still in hand. The floor seemed to be stained in brown. Greyed sticks littered about, crates and old furniture stacked by the wall and covered in dust or ash. A lone table in the center of the room with red crystals, half-melted candles, and markings in chalk drawn upon its surface.
Are those bones on the floor?
What, those things? Hang on. I thought they were sticks. Oh, that's a skull, and there's a stain on the floor.
What do we do now?
Whoever we saw going down here for some reason, I say we track them down. They left behind a spirit trail and can follow that at least. This way.
Onwards they trekked, following the spirit trail over the snowy fields towards the hills. The being left behind no prints, while the elves were knee-deep in the snow, walking single file further from the village, through a forest of gnarled trees, before stumbling upon a quarry carved into the side of a rocky hill. The trail led through the quarry into a darkened tunnel at the base. Glancing at each other in concern, they shrugged and cautiously entered the tunnel. Narrow, but lit, with small candles melted onto the rock walls. The light ahead grew brighter as they walked into a vast underground cavern, the walls and ceiling mossy and dripping, the floor eerily flat and coated brown. Dried blood, just as the ruined house's basement.
Now, where is this place?
You've come upon hell, my dear, and I am its keeper.
Above them, a man approached, walking upside down on the cavern ceiling. He dropped, turning in midair to land on his feet before them. Tall, gaunt, he was dressed in red robes draped over his skeletal frame, his eyes bloodshot and glowing, fingernails long and sharp.
Mortals, half-lifers, it's not common to see your kind around these parts. What brings you here? I don't want any trouble.
Neither do we. We're mages, and we're following the trail of a dark being that led us into this cave.
I see. What did this being look like?
We couldn't see it clearly, only their hands from beneath a dark cloak.
No souls have entered this place, besides you two. Perhaps dark trickery is at play and diverted you here instead.
Where is here? What do you mean by hell?
Apologies, I do have a flair for the dramatics, and when I have guests, I always dress for the occasion. In most religions, the concept of hell is a place for the damned to exist in perpetual misery and agony. What else would a cave at the bottom of a quarry in the midst of winter be, if not that? Sorry, I haven't introduced myself. I am Lord Ardalian.
You came in here walking on the ceiling upside down. Are you a mage?
No, my power comes from within, an ancient force forgotten by many, forbidden for centuries, drawn not from some realm or the natural world, but from the self, from the others.
Whatever it is, can't be doing you too well. Do you need help? Because I don't think I'd take dancing on the ceiling if I had to look like a corpse to do it. No offence.
I am over 5 centuries old, dear half-lifers. Sacrifices have to be made. To understand this power, to control it, I made a deal many years ago. Life for life, and many lives beyond.
This is blood magic.
No, blood magic is nothing compared to this. That is wasteful, misguided, and clumsy. I am one of a lineage stretching back centuries, creatures bred for domination and conquest, engineered by the beyond to be the ultimate form of life on this miserable, cruel planet.
From the darkness, pale, sickly men and women emerged, matching the appearance of the Lord, glaring their way with a terrifying hunger. Agnetha and Merelda backed into each other, surrounded, realizing they were stood upon a circular stone platform in the center of the cavern.
I was right to say you were the only two souls to enter this cavern. We gave up our souls long ago, damned we may be, but who needs a notion of salvation when life and all its riches are here for the taking? Normally I would throw the bodies of intruders to my coven, but they and I require human blood, and your elven selves do not meet our requirements.
He pulled the lever on the wall, and the ground beneath Agnetha and Merelda's feet fell away. The drop was short. Agnetha clattered to the ground in the darkened chamber below. Merelda was not so lucky.
Holy Mother of God! There's a spike in my leg!
Hold still, I can heal, I can heal it! There, it's gone. Impalements are easy. Are you okay?
There was a bloody stick in my bloody calf. No, I'm not okay.
The muscle and skin are easy to repair, but yes, you might need something to take the shock off. Chew on this.
All these spikes pointing up from where we fell.
Talk about lucky we missed it. Might have been the angle we were facing.
Missed it. Spike in the leg?
A rasping growl came from the darkness of the chamber, pinpricks of light glistening back at them, casting fire into their hands. Agnetha saw the horrors watching. Creatures, long-limbed, chalky skin, lipless and teeth sharp, red eyes and glowing, their hands clawing at her and Merelda, safe for now in the light. As the beings crept towards them, blood mixed with drool pouring from their mouths.
Just as the Jarl said, they fear the light.
The trapdoor above us is closing. There won't be any light.
Merelda, get down.
Why?
I'm about to cast a spell, a powerful one. It's been a while, it could totally wipe me out and you might get singed, so stay down.
Merelda ducked as Agnetha stood, raised her hand, and snapped her fingers. A burst of flame emanated from the center of the crowd of bloodsuckers, spreading from creature to creature as they stumbled, flamed. Drawing their swords, the two elves started forwards, cutting through the creatures and advancing to the corridor beyond the chamber.
Have you ever seen anything like that before?
Not in person. Now's really the time I remember what I read in all those textbooks.
Do we continue down this way?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Why is it my life has been quiet and normal, and then you come along and once again we're fighting for our lives against creatures?
I live a very busy life, just like you said you did. Now you're saying it's quiet and normal.
Quiet and normal, meaning a hard life on the road. Camping away from home for 9 months out of the year. Working my fingers to the bone to make sure my share of goods justify my staying in the clan. Putting on a brave face and not knowing if people you're selling to are going to come back later with torches and pitchforks. That's my normal, Agnetha. That's the life Minera led. So sometimes we forget to write letters to our own damn friends.
Merelda, I understand things are hard, but you don't need to keep beating yourself up over not keeping in contact with me. I understand. Things happen. Life gets in the way. Spindly little prick!
Agnetha, look in here.
The two entered the side chamber the creature just leapt from. Bookcases reaching as high as the ceiling, piled full of an assortment of items. Diaries, clothing, compasses, suitcases and trunks, musical instruments, children's toys, all meticulously catalogued.
What are they? Collectors?
This diary here, dated 1656.
That's 120 years ago.
The last entry. I have happened upon a small village called Svalbard-Svion.
That's Svelbjorn by the sea.
Weather is harsh, and I have found a spot to camp near their old rock quarry. I will speak to the people I have seen by there. I was told by the villagers the place was deserted.
These are all mementos, all of them, of people unfortunate enough to stumble on the vampires. Every single item belonged to their victims. 500 years that skinny bastard's been around. 500 years of killing. It ends tonight.
The elves left the room, continuing through the caverns, getting colder and closer to the outside with each step. Only a moment later, they left the caves for the world above, the air frosty and bitter, and hurried back to the village to alert the Jarl.
So the legends are true. Then you know what an impossible task it is you're asking of us.
These things can be killed. We cut down a dozen or so, easily.
These demons fear the light. And like you said, life and warmth harms them.
We're a small village, numbering barely 100. We're not fortified. We're not defended because we never had to be.
Is that not a sword at your belt? Or at the hips of your armoured guard?
I mostly use it to cut up food for my cat.
Okay, don't use your sword. But you have weapons. I am a weapon. I can set fire to a room with a click of my fingers.
Blood-sucking freaks have sat in that cave a stone's throw from your village for uncountable years, and you've not defended at all. Never been attacked. Never before the house fire.
It is a complicated story.
What? Then uncomplicate it.
The legends. True, yes, and this has become known for a while. It is a burden held by the Jarl to know this truth, to keep the peace, and peace remained. Never has there been attacks. Never have we encountered such creatures. I had my doubts they were even out there. But then the fire happened. A family of this village burnt to death by these creatures, or so I assume. I cannot, in good conscience, order my men to their deaths entering that quarry, and doom every person in this village as consequence.
So I'll lead the charge. Like I said, we cut our way through those ones down there, then we wipe these things out for good.
One of the pale men from the caves had flew down from the sky, pinning one of the Jarl's armed guards down and chomping into his neck. His skin, whiter than the snow, turned pink, then red as he fed. His muscles growing as he stood drawing a battle axe and charged forwards. The rasping from the caves echoed around as the creatures emerged from the darkness, running on all fours, climbing up roofs of houses, attacking the villagers gathered in the square outside of the Jarl's building. Agnetha and Merelda drew their swords, helping the guards defend against the creatures, still pouring out from the night. The Jarl picked up the sword of his fallen guard, cutting down one of the larger demons. Arrows flew from over their heads into the creatures. As Agnetha turned, she saw elven warriors from Merelda's clan advancing towards them, helping them hold back the vampires. The ground was soon littered with their corpses. It all went quiet. Looking up, Agnetha saw the vampire lord glaring down at them from the rooftop.
Humans! Elves! You intrude on our land and act surprised when you suffer the consequences. An eye for an eye was the old agreement, and we held true to our word when we burnt down that house. Tonight, 2 of your number desecrated our chambers and fried our spawnlings. For that, you have signed away your fates. Make peace with your gods, for tonight is your final night.
Miss Deveaux, we need to stop meeting like this. First animal hybrids, now these things. Whatever they are.
I'll tell you what they are. They're the remnants of a race on the brink of extinction, and tonight I'm gonna wipe them out. Who's with me?
I know it sounds like she's advocating for genocide, but I got nothing.
Agnetha and Merelda led the village guards and elven warriors to the quarry, which was swarming with vampires as they arrived. Elven archers and mages made short work of the creeps before they entered the caves, cutting their way through to the main cavern. There stood the vampire lord, ancient-looking plate armor pulled over his robes, a great sword in hand. The elves and guards surrounded him, shields raised, each taking jabs at him that he easily blocked.
Pathetic! Your weapon skills are feeble. Even if they were to get a hit, your manufactured swords would cause me no harm.
Gloat all you want, Alderman.
I am Lord Ardalian!
Scum like you don't deserve to be remembered.
The elf leader swung and hit the lord's leg. He stumbled before letting out a roar and slamming his sword into the ground, which trembled with terrifying energy, sending those gathered soldiers flying off their feet. The lord brandished his sword at Agnetha, slowly walking towards her, as his vampire spawnlings crawled out from the walls behind him.
Do you know what I am?
An outdated and offensive allegory to the dangers of immigrants and plagues.
Insolent girl! I am a prince of darkness, a ruler of the night. I've walked this world for 500 years, and I shall continue to walk it for 500 more. Your fleeting life is meaningless to me. I've drained the blood of men, women, and children in countless villages, and the one above us will simply add to the list, as will every village, every person that crosses my path. And I will not cease in my consumption until every being of this land is reduced to bones beneath my feet.
Sorry, I missed that last bit. Could you repeat that?
Your mid-century attempt at wit will do nothing to make your corpse's face stand out from the pile.
Nah, it's just that your speech ended a little sooner than I thought. I just needed you to take those last 3 steps.
Agnetha pulled the lever on the wall, as the Lord had done to her earlier that night. The circular platform the Lord stood upon opened beneath his feet, sending him falling into the pit of wooden spikes below. His reign of terror was at an end. Agnetha and the others gathered around the hole to look upon his corpse, as his spawnlings retreated back in fear. As the doors closed up on the vampire lord's corpse, Agnetha snapped her fingers once more, setting him and the spikes ablaze.
Better safe than sorry.
Couldn't you have set him alight that way earlier?
Maybe.
Morning brought with it relief, as the vampiric plague that had haunted the village of Svelbjorn for over a century was brought to an end. The spawnlings, whose corpses still littered the streets from the fight, began to crumble into ash.
If the legends are to be believed, and from all that's happened, I'd say that we have good reason to. These creatures were created from the will of the Lord you killed. Their existence is nothing without their master. The others, more man than creature, were once living like you and I. We shall find a way to clean this mess. I must thank you all once more for saving us from something far worse.
You gave us space to camp when others would turn us down. Even if you hadn't, we still would have helped. Kindness breeds kindness.
My name is Sigrun. I run the local tavern. The offer still stands if you're needing 3 warm beds for the night.
For that now, we will thankfully accept.
Right this way. The same offer applies to you, Miss Deveaux.
Oh, thank you. I'll need a rest.
I spoke with the Drenissar. I told her about your spirit problem back in Varadun. You were right. It sounds like a malignant spirit. She provided me with this spell of elven magic. It should save you the trip to the university.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
All you do is recite the incantation, and combined with the name of which the person was known when they were alive, it will rob them of their power and banish them to the beyond, or something like that.
Wicked. So now I've got this. I just need to find the guy's real name, and I'm set.
The name by which he was known? There's a difference, so I'm told.
By the name which he was known. Got it. I guess I wanted to ask you something for a while, but I never quite had the words.
Yeah?
I was wondering if you fancied a drink, maybe, after we get all rested and clean ourselves of blood and stuff.
Sure thing, but I think my boyfriend
yeah?
might be worrying if I'm okay.
Of course, yeah.
But I would like to, and maybe sometime in the future, if I find myself back in Varadun.
And single.
I could, look you up.
That sounds like a plan. Just make sure you do. And, write me, yeah?
I will, I promise. You gotta tell me how that spell works, yeah?
Well, for sure. Goodbye, Merelda.
Goodbye, Agnetha.
The Misadventures of Agnetha Deveaux, starring
Liz Corrick as Agnetha.
Gemma-Louise Sharman as Merelda.
Mike Keane as the Vampire Lord.
Nora Holmen as Sigrun. Greg Johnson as Jarl Melvrig.
Mladen Petrov as Ulgred.
Royce Pentaghast as the vampires.
Michael McCormick as the Elven clan leader.
and Michael Mengarda as the narrator. Theme music composed by Matt Harris. Additional music by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Produced by City Park Radio 2022.